Hey everyone, Emmanuel here. Okay, so this week at the Fight Club, I wanted to really cover the topic of cooperation. Now, it's kind of an interesting topic. It came about in a kind of an indirect way, but I look every week at trying to find interesting topics for you guys. So there's obviously big topics like legs and arms and stick and knife, but then there's these soft topics like cooperation. And I really was thinking about it because I remember, as most of you know, I was a quite a long athlete, and I played in a lot of sports teams over the years, and I've also coached a lot of teams in my days as well. And cooperation is one of those things that will really set apart good and great teams. In many cases, I've seen it happen in sports where a team on paper was definitely more talented, but the team that cooperated better was the one that actually won the championships and did great things. So, cooperation being probably a big thing. Now, when I say just cooperate, that's an interesting one. It reminds me of somebody recently who asked me at the club, well, I just want to be happy. And I started laughing, not necessarily at them, but guys, happiness, just happiness, like that's the highest thing. Like you don't just like I just want $1 billion. It's not. This is a big deal. Happiness is such a high pursuit. It you don't. There's a lot to get there. It's not just. People make it like a minimum. It's not a minimum. It's the highest representation. The question comes when, let's say, with happiness quickly, is happiness is not achieving something. It's the pursuit of something. So I'll leave it like that. It's not necessarily the achievement of that goal. It's the pursuit of it that is very important, right? So try to think of cooperation in these terms, okay? So when you're training with a partner, okay, so especially in martial arts, you have so there's some martial arts, not at Fight Club or with Sistema generally, but ego. Let's say when two people compete, the highest thing that can be served with competition is you service the ego. The person that wins, his ego grows, and the person that doesn't goes down. At the end of the day, that's what competition serves. And I can tell you from a lifetime of sports, 100%, it's just your ego that gets served at the highest end when you compete. When you cooperate, though, the highest order that can come of that is the highest possible outcome. So think about that. So for martial arts, the best outcome, if you're in a sports environment, yes, winning the match. But even more than that is learning and continued learning. That's the key. So you always want to say to yourself that even in a win or even in a loss in a game, that I continue my growth and my learning and I see what I need to work on. It's very important to have that mentality. So because of that, I think competition is difficult, so I don't go. But cooperation, though, which is the key part, is very much like two people. So if I'm training with somebody and we're doing drills together, if we're cooperating proper, if we're giving each other enough friction, okay, so do this with your hands and you feel there's a result, there's a warmth, there's something that's being produced when two people rub together. It's almost like we're trying to start a fire in each other. When we do this, when we cause no friction, right, nothing happens. You'll never start a fire like this in a person. So when you push a person and don't sincerely mean it, or when you grab a person and it's very light and empty, when you're doing some action, even unless it's specific, when you're doing an action with no, at least a little bit of friction, at least a little bit of agitation, a little bit of stirring up the person, if you're just lightly pushing them and that's all, the higher good will not be served there. You won't learn anything. For me, two people need to get together and explore what's possible. And our two perspectives, I have one perspective, my partner will have another perspective. When we come together, we share our perspectives, and together we decide which perspective was maybe better, and we both benefit from that. I see yours, you see mine, and then together we figure out which one was better. And then along that journey, I'm studying how to cause some friction in you so you have something to work with what the teacher has said. So we practice breathing on our own, and then we practice understand the fundamentals of breathing. Then we get into hand-to-hand combat, wrestling, fighting, and that breathing is challenged in a different way, causing us to look at it deeper and pay attention to it more. We practice movements on our own, and then we start wrestling with somebody, and then that's agitated. So to be a good partner, you need to know how to agitate or cause some friction just enough so that the partner, and together you can start to understand maybe which way or which perspective was better. But when I say I'm better, if I just like ego comes out of it and I just want to wrestle with somebody and choke them, then the only thing that's served is my ego. But if two people are exploring and cooperating in the process of learning which perspective is better, then it's kind of like, if I can give you this analogy, it's like, think of martial arts as a series of walls. So there's a wall, and then I try to look over that wall and see what's on the other side. Life, for that matter, can be like this, right? A series of obstacles that we're trying to look over and see what's on the other side. Well, when you compete, you're just on your own and you can only see over the wall so high. But when you cooperate with somebody, you can put them on your shoulders, and now you both can see a further distance and over further walls. And together you can communicate what you see, and that's powerful. So cooperation is an assistance for both people's benefits. That's how it is. We both benefit by doing this, and we can both go further. Okay, we both go further. Now, as some of you know, I'm also a cyclist. I've done a lot of cycling in my day, and I usually go on my own, and it's the way I like it. I like the meditative version of it. But when you watch, let's say, Tour de France or any cycling race, they work together. With the group can always go much faster than the individual. So just watch the Tour de France. The group is called the peloton. And the peloton is a powerful movement. It's a bunch of bikes moving together. Or even, for that matter, it can be 10 bikes in a team. Like, they're usually in teams. And the collective team stays together, works together, cooperates with each other, and then finally, in that day, they decide who is the best rider that day, and that person at the very end goes at it alone and tries to win the race. But the group has to set that up. There is no one person that is going to start a 4-hour race up a hill and be successful. One person will only be able to go so far. It will definitely not win the whole thing. It might be at the end, but he's had all this assistance the whole time. So for those of you who know cycling, you know exactly what I mean. Well, martial arts is the same. We work with many different partners, collectively helping ourselves. Okay, this is critical. Now, in saying that, not everybody cooperates nice. So we need to understand this. And this has been taught to us from little kids. The teachers try to teach us how to cooperate. So I will tell you this. At its core, cooperation is about communication. And in many cases, people are bad communicators. So I would say more times, so 6 times out of 10, people are not bad cooperators. They're not cooperating deliberately. They're bad communicators. They didn't communicate clearly what they meant. So for you to be a cooperator, be very good at clarifying what you want. So asking good questions and repeating the answers you hear back. When you repeat it back to them, when somebody says something to you from a question and you repeat it back, they will clarify what they mean. Because in many cases, people will start to change what you realize didn't really know what they were communicating. They weren't even aware of what the problem was. So take a second with your partners, and if they're not pushing you, grabbing you hard enough to create a friction, to create something for you to work with, if it allows you just to zone out, then you're missing it. Okay, you're missing the most valuable part of martial art training. For me, I work on my own. I work out on my own quite a bit. That's the higher up you go in something, it's a very lonely journey. You're just, the work you have to do. It's very personal and it's very lonely. And that's mastery level stuff. But then I love to get together with groups of people and train together, because it allows me to check these personal skills that I've been working on, and how I can communicate them. So we are humans, and we need to interact with people, and that means we need to communicate, and that means we need to cooperate when necessary, when absolutely necessary. So study communication, clarifying the communication you hear and clarifying the communication that you would like to express when you're training. So if your partner is not pushing you hard enough, ask them to push a little bit harder. And when they, encourage them, and you have to actually encourage them to do this. So don't feel afraid to encourage somebody to push you harder, punch you harder, wrestle with you harder, and create enough agitation that you feel growth. It cannot be so easy that you don't feel that you need to try to work at it. It needs to be hard enough. Your breath has to be labored enough. Your movement has to be challenged enough for it to continue growing. This is very important. It's part of our evolution. Yes, it's nice to move and feel nice and zone out once in a while, but we also want to grow. Like, there is a part of it that is like therapy and relaxation, and there's a part of it that should be challenging and growth. So we want to prepare ourselves. The highest order in martial arts for me is not beating somebody. For us as martial artists, we want to have seen everything that could possibly have happened to us. If somebody can punch us, if somebody can choke us, if somebody can stab us, if somebody can shoot us, if somebody can multiple attackers, we're going to the ground. We want to have been exposed to all of this stuff, so when it happens, we are not surprised. So the highest of this whole thing is that we have seen everything. So nothing surprises us in a real situation. Nothing should surprise us. We should have seen it or understood it a little bit, maybe not to its full degree. Winning is subjective. Winning and losing is subjective. I can tell you that right now. You could win a fight and not feel like a winner, and you could lose a fight and feel like a winner. It's very subjective, and I've seen it happen in sports as well as real life fighting. It is much more in training about preparing yourself so nothing surprises you in real. That you understand what you can do and what you can't do, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. These are important lessons to be learned. So training to me is exposing ourselves to as much as we possibly can, and also as many perspectives as we can. Old people, young people, kids, men, women, big, small. Everybody has their own perspective. Some people can great talk, some people great doing, some people very little words, a lot of action. Other people, no action, lots of words. We need to expose ourselves to all these different things and understand how to communicate with these different types of people. And this is where I believe Systema is head and shoulders above a lot of things. So I really, in all the training I've done, the amount of perspective and exposure to different things is amazing about Systema. And we need to make sure that at the core of it, we understand what our role as a partner is and how to cooperate in the learning process. Teacher gives some instruction, you look at the partner you have, and everybody's different, and you look at what's possible with that partner. If they're not moving, get them moving. If they move really well, challenge that moving. If they breathe really well, challenge that breathing. If they don't breathe well, teach them a little bit. Like you have to understand who is in front of you, what they're capable of, and make a kind of understanding of how to go. So please think of the idea of cooperation as two people that can stand on each other's shoulders to look at a further distance to gain better perspective. Okay? Whereas if you're on your own, you can only stand as tall as you are. And that's a very limiting, and that's competition mindset. So please look at cooperation, look at the role that you play as a partner this week, and that you also say to yourself, think of how good training is when you have a good partner. And a good partner is not a nice partner. A good partner challenges you a little bit. A good partner pushes you a little bit, and a good partner properly communicates. So for you to have that, you need to study that. And don't ever kid yourself, guys. Cooperation is like a skill. It is exactly like awareness. If you practice your awareness, if you count windows, count doors, count cars, count people, count colors, your awareness will grow. If you cooperate in the same practice, if you practice cooperation, it will grow as a skill. So practice your cooperation at home with your partner, with your kids, at the club, at work. Practice good cooperation, which at the core is good communication. Hope this helps, guys. See you all in class. Hard classes this week.